And we passed every one of these tests and began to correct all these things. We went into New Zealand, and there is a very good video that will be coming out very soon to show you what these kinds of things look like when they're in real life taking place. And then I wrote a book called The Serpent of Light. And this book described the interaction of myself and other people I work with approximately a little less than 1,000 indigenous tribes in North and South America. This was about the same energy times that the Mayans are talking about with the precession of the equinoxes of the last 13,000 years and the last 26,000 years. The Serpent of Light talks about the kundalini of the earth moving from the western mountains of Tibet to the northern mountains of Chile. This was an extraordinary historical event that almost nobody on earth knew that was taking place, but it was huge, it was massive. And the energy comes from the center of the earth and finds a place. It comes out very much like a snake. That's why it was called the Serpent of Light. And first it moves all over the world, moving from every single area of the earth. And then it finds a place and it coils down inside the earth, and it stays there for the next 13,000 years. And this energy is the kundalini. It wakens the people in that region who become the teachers of the world, just as they have been in India and Tibet for the last many thousands of years. And but now that it has moved to the Andes, it will be the Chileans, the Peruvians, the Argentinians, countries like as far away as Colombia and Brazil and Ecuador. These energies are going to awaken the souls there. But the Kundalini was also aimed on the western side of the mountain out over the ocean, so that it went out over the Polynesian world, over to Easter Island and to Moorea and out further, all the way as far as New Zealand. And so there was an awakening, a new awakening, and brand new spiritual energy that the world has never seen. And that energy moved into Chile in the year 2002. In 2003, or later 2002, I went to Chile and went to the mountains there to experience this energy directly. But I couldn't feel it. I couldn't feel anything. I was very confused. I really didn't know why I couldn't feel anything. I came back home. I waited a year and a half. I went back down there again to feel it. I felt absolutely nothing. And I didn't understand because I knew it was there. There was 112 tribes sitting in a circle waiting for it to come in when it arrived. And they knew it was there, but it wasn't working, and I didn't know why. Then we received an invitation from the Rapa Nui, a tribe that lives on Easter Island out of Chile. And they wanted us to come and do ceremony with them. And it was followed by an invitation from the Queen of the Polynesian Islands, a woman we will simply say Mama Lucy. And she was the most important female in the Polynesians. And she invited us to the island of Moorea, which is the south pole of this grid. Now, this is something I didn't say, and I think I need to add this right now. The consciousness grid is just like the Earth. It has an axis that runs through it. And the North Pole and the South Pole are very important points. The North Pole happens to be just outside of where the Great Pyramid is, only just a little ways away from it, about 1.5 miles, which is nothing relative to the 25,000 miles of the Earth. And then it goes through the Earth and it comes out. If you went straight through the Earth, you would come out on the ocean, but it doesn't. There's a slight curve in it, and it comes out in an island called Moorea. And this is where the South Pole is, and this is where Mama Lucy was, and she was inviting us to this place. And so we began a journey, and as we were instructed, we were to bring people from all over the world to this place, and they were to represent the world. I don't even remember how many countries it was. It was about 14 or 17 countries that were involved in this, with about 55 people. And we all met in Easter Island for the purpose of doing this kind of geomancy on the Earth. And we were met there by the Rapa Nui, who, before they could even talk to us or begin to do anything, they said that we had to do an initiation, a ceremony that was to connect us closer in our hearts and so that we could work together. This was an ancient ceremony where they stripped down their clothes and put body markings on and began to do the ceremony with each one of us in there, and we began to interact in this ceremony. Afterwards, we ate these meals with them, and we connected in such a way that we could then proceed and go on from that time. We spent some time there getting used to the energies, getting to know the people, having the Rapa Nui tell us things that they haven't told people in hundreds and hundreds of years, telling us about their inner cities inside, their tunnels, and knowing all this time the reason why we were there was to do a correction. It wasn't until I was actually there that I began to understand. In fact, it wasn't until we started to do this correction ceremony. They took us way out into this wooded area and told us that this is where the ceremony had to be. And as we were setting everything up, the inner guidance that I follow came in and explained to me why we were doing this ceremony right at the very, very last moment. And it had to do with the Rapa Nui. The Rapa Nui, at one point, they destroyed all their trees, and so that there was no more food, and they began to eat each other. They began cannibalism. And this cannibalism that they created on that island spread throughout the Polynesian islands. And it was this cannibalism that we had to correct. It had to be forgiven, and they had to forgive themselves in this ceremony, so that what that would do is correct the geometry of above the earth, above the island where we were, really. And that in turn would begin to allow the flow to really move through this thing where it could then be born. And so when I was actually taken to the ceremonial site by the Rapa Nui and were shown where it was, and I actually began to set up, putting the cloth on the ground, beginning to put the crystals and everything to arrange for the ceremonial process, it was then that I understood why we were doing this ceremony. And this is important to understand. The Kundalini of the earth did not function because of this distortion that was directly above it in the grid. And it was purposely done by the Ascended Masters and the people involved in this. They didn't want the Kundalini to begin to function before the consciousness grid was born. They need to work together. And so they got the Kundalini in place, but they had to hold it there for about 6 years until the grid was completed. And so then it all made perfect sense of why we were there and what we were doing. And so we began this ceremony, and it was a ceremony that I had never seen before. According to the Rapa Nui, this ceremony had not been performed in anything similar to it for at least 13,000 years. And but that's their story, and I can't really tell you why they said that. And so the ceremony began to unfold with both our group and the Rapa Nui there. And then what it did was it corrected the forgiveness of the cannibalism took place. The energy corrected itself. The grid formed perfectly around the earth for the first time ever, and I felt like it was completed. It felt in my heart, okay, this is done, and I ended the ceremony, and began to end it when something occurred that I did not expect. I had never seen before.